The things we go through, the things that we experience. Experience is the basis of our relationship. In order to have a relationship with someone means that you have to have experience with them. This is very much true, right? Especially with courtship comes into play. So many of you married couples in here, maybe some of you are dating somebody right now. We begin to have experience, right? The first date, you determine if you're ever going to go out with them again. From that, then there's the second date and the third, and we grow, and then of course you get married, and then it's like you just married a whole new different person, right? Like you've come to experience. There's the dating man, the married man. There is a difference I've come to learn. I'm trying to get back to the dating lanes, where you bring the flowers and you're guys, we're no longer impressing them, right? So we're like, you guys experienced all that. You don't need that anymore, right? But they do. So they keep telling us. They leave little hints and they tell their friends, and then you have to pick that up. So we have to go back and learn how to re-experience that again. Because in order to know someone, we have to continue to have experience with them. Otherwise, it becomes cold and we grow apart. And you're no longer having that experience. We do that with friends. You're not near as close to your friends that you don't have experience with on a daily basis. I mean, I take an example for me. I call my buddy Ben all the time who lives in Kansas City. But we're not nearly as close together as when we were bunk mates and we were living in the basement together and we were washing our dishes in the bathtub. I mean, those are experiences you don't forget. I shouldn't have shared that, but we come to know God. Let's get back to the serious part of today. We come to know God by our experience with Him. And as we obey Him, He accomplishes His work in us. It is through remembering our experiences that we have through our life that we can learn from and grow in our life in the relationship with God. That we come to know God more through our experience with Him as we obey Him. I want us to kind of wrap our minds around it this morning. As you begin to remember your experiences through your life, where were the times where we were obeying God or disobeying God? Because that's when we come back in and we realize, wow, I'm knowing God more and more. See, really knowing God only comes through an experience as He reveals Himself to us. See, in all relationships, we have a context that is appropriate for a relationship, right? God has submitted to us and continues to submit to us, and we submit to God in this obedience. Excuse me. See, healthy relationships always involve a mutual submission. Going back to the married thing, right? Mutual submission, right? That's present in all of our married couples, right? We got one right. So obedience is the context for knowing God. We realize that by obeying Him, that we begin to experience Him more and more and more. The more experience you have with someone, the better you know them. Let's think about that, remembering our experiences with God as a journey with God. So we think about our life as it progresses, and we realize that this is a journey with God. But really, in aspects, it's a journey of experiences for us. Is it not? It's a journey of experience. The only way to experience God is to consistently obey Him. And as you experience God, you come to know Him more intimately and personally. Isn't that really what it's all about? It's what we just celebrated. It's what we're teaching our small children. It's what Christmas with Grace was all about. It's about a personal and intimate relationship with God. That's how we view our experiences. And as you come to know Him, you will want to express your praise, your gratitude, and you will want to worship Him. I think that's what's so amazing as I begin to think about this concept of experiencing God. And I remember those times with Him throughout my life. It makes me want to express my praise and my worship It's not, I'm a Christian and I have to worship God and I have to tell others about Him. No, it's because of my experience. It's because I'm remembering those times. There's a great experience in the Bible that we're going to take a look at today. So if you have your Bibles, I'm going to pull those out. And it comes out of after Matthew, which is Mark, the second book of the New Testament. Mark chapter 9. I believe we're going to maybe have it up on the PowerPoint if you don't have your Bibles today. We'd encourage you, bring your Bibles. Matthew chapter 9, verses 2 through 9. 6 days later, Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up on a high mountain to be alone. And as the men watched, Jesus' appearance was transformed, and his clothes became dazzling white, far whiter than any earthly bleach could ever make them. And then Elijah and Moses appeared and began talking with Jesus. And Peter exclaimed, "Rabbi, it's wonderful for us to be here. Let's make 3 shelters as memorials, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He said this because he didn't really know what else to say, for they were all terrified. And then a cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my dearly loved Son. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, Moses and Elijah were gone, and they saw only Jesus with them. And as they went back down the mountain, he told them not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. Wow. Most translations will say that this is the transfiguration happened. But really, we can really call it today the mountaintop experience or the mountainside experience. Because what I love, what happens here for Peter, James, and John, if you don't know it, they were the closest to Jesus. They were kind of like his inner 3 of the 12. He spent more time with them than he did any of the others. And he pulled them aside. He said, "Hey, look, I want you to go up here." And wow, what an amazing thing here. So we see this picture, and Jesus is taking them, and the purpose is because he wants some intimate, personal time with them. He wanted to. He pulled them aside to be alone with them, purposely. Wow. You know what? God is calling us the same thing this morning. He's calling out your name saying, "Hey, come to the mountaintop." You know, I know it might be a hard climb to get there, and there's going to be some rugged edges. And you may stop, and you may cry out for help during your climb up to the mountaintop. But hey, come and spend that alone time with me. Because it's going to be amazing. Because wow, look at what Peter, James, and John got to experience on the mountain. They saw Jesus transform. And really, as we study this, the reason his clothes become whiter than anything we could ever use to make it white is preparing him as the king. That was his robe. And so we look at that what they've experienced, and they're probably like just almost jumping out of their skin. I imagine, you know, it's kind of like my personality. You know, I'm what I call a naturally caffeinated person. Miss Becky doesn't let me have any coffee during the week. She holds it away from me. Every time I come to staff, she's don't. When I just walk in the door, she's like, "No coffee." And so I can imagine that they're just about to burst out of their skin. They just had this incredible experience. They saw Jesus. They're like, "Hey, man, look at those 2 saints from the Old Testament." They're like, "Wow." And Jesus is like, "Hold up, guys. You can't tell anybody what you just went through until after I rise from the dead." Because really, in a way, this is something that's so amazing. It's almost unbelievable. So until Jesus is raised from the dead, you know, which is another incredible miracle that he does, comes back to life. You know, it's almost, people almost probably wouldn't believe it. Jesus is like, "Hey, let's save this experience for another time." And we would probably react in the same way.